Thank you so much for that lovely introduction. So I just have one figure for you to start off with, and that's 700,000. 700,000 hours is, if we have a life expectancy of the age of 80, we will be on this earth floor. We sleep for approximately 200,000 hours. Does anyone want to know how many hours that we work in a lifetime? Or any guesses? So we work for about 90,000 hours in our lifetime. And I guess my message today is really around when you're in work, it's so important to be working in something that you're interested in and something that you really want to do, okay? So in the words of Steve Jobs, your work is going to fill a large part of your life and is the only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work. All right, so just I guess a little bit, I know there was an introduction there, but just a little bit about me. My background has predominantly been working in HR. I was a business partner for over 12 to 15 years, and I worked in a corporation in recruiting people, talent management. So I was at the side of the table interviewing people and working with senior leaders in order to develop their talent strategies. I also have a master's in Work and Organisational Behaviour, which is really interesting because it tells me about the company cultures that people work in and the companies that, how they design their talent management, how they design their recruitment strategies and things like that. So coupling those two things together, what I bring my expertise into is career coaching. And I want to help people to work in the job that best suits them and the job that they will be most happy in. So I've met quite a lot of people earlier on today, and it's very overwhelming and you don't know where to start and it's really confusing. So what I want to do is I want to help you today and guide you in the best possible way that you can find purpose in your job search and reduce that overwhelm. So to start off with, I want to look at what most matters in work to people. So when people are in employment, what they're saying is most important to them. I also want to talk about doing your research, how important it is not just to do mass applications to loads of jobs and nearly forget about what you're applying for. You get a bit lost in that. I want to show you a little bit, expanding on the previous speaker as well, putting purpose into your CV. How can you make it come to life and how can you make it appeal to that recruiter? And then the interview, a few of my top tips, having been the interviewer. You would be very surprised to know that the interviewer really wants to hire you. I know it's surprising, but we all want to fill the job at the end of the day. We have a business to run, and we want to get all of those job vacancies filled so the business can operate to 100% capacity. And then finally, I'm going to leave you on a Japanese model called Ikigai. Okay, so when I was doing my research for today, I was looking into what would people want to know. So when you're in employment, these are actually the top 10 elements that are most important to people. And the reason I'm sharing them with you today is I want you to look at these factors for yourselves in your job search. So if this is important to people while they're in work, I want you to look at these with, okay, I'm looking for a job right now. And what I want to look at is what's important to me. So for every one of you, it's going to be different. Every one of you have different roles, responsibilities in your lives. So I'm going to go through a few points here, and I want you to think about what's really important to you. So work-life balance is number one. Everybody knows you either, work to live or live to work. So you want to spend your time in work, but you also want to spend time with your personal life and your family. So number two, salary is hugely important. I think as Irish people, we kind of can underplay that. We don't really feel comfortable talking about it, but it's really important. You don't undersell yourself. You go for the salary that you feel that you are valued at and you've qualified and you're worth. Also, I would recommend as well, if you don't know what your salary is, for your particular role, take out some salary surveys. There's a lot of recruitment agents and they publish yearly salary surveys that you can look up your role and see, okay, actually this particular role merits that. And you can then have a good conversation with the recruiter around what you're worth. Flexible work arrangements, hugely important nowadays. We're hearing an awful lot around return to office mandates and things like that. There is still hybrid roles out there. There are still remote roles out there. What's important to you and what do you want? Do you want to work on site? Some people, they like the company of people. They like being in the on-site environment. So just think if that's important to you. Benefits package, so healthcare could be very important to you. Obviously look at bonus and things like that. Job security is another one. So if you're going to be applying for a mortgage in the next year or two, so think about this if you're applying for a role. There's probably very little point in you applying for a contract role or a fixed term role. What you want to do is you want to apply for more a permanent role, because this is being an important criteria for you in getting a mortgage down the line. So again, as I say, everybody is different in what they're looking for. And then positive company culture is hugely important. I'll touch on this right through my presentation. It's so important for everyone to work in a company that you really do fit in, you like the values, and it's very HR thing to say, but when you're in a company that your values don't align, you just feel like something's a bit off. So just another thing then is career development opportunities. So when you go into a company, is there opportunity for you to develop? Is there opportunity for you to grow? Is there potential for promotion? So if I could ask you now, just take 2 minutes, just looking at this screen behind me, and I want you to think of what are your top 3 negotiables. So if you can walk away today and just, if you have a notepad or a piece of paper or anything like that, just take it out and just write down what is important to me. And what I'm doing here is I'm helping you focus what your end goal is. So for every one of you, it's going to be very different. So just don't underestimate your non-negotiables. I'll keep talking about them, by the way. Okay, so research time. So again, what I said earlier around mass application, loads of there's loads of jobs out there at the moment on LinkedIn. But what I would encourage you to do is just start by looking at the companies you'd like to work for. Look at what type of size company you want to work for. Do you want to work for a large multinational, or would you prefer some medium-sized company because you might like, a smaller type working environment? And the location, don't underestimate the location of the company, particularly, as I said, we're going back onto a lot of on-site. So if you need to work on-site for 5 days, really make sure that the location, your dream job could be, an hour and a half's drive away, but that might seem really good and attractive now when you look at the job advert. But when you're going to be driving that drive every day and it's 3 hours of your day, the work-life balance we spoke about earlier, that's gone out the window. So you're reducing your time with your family and your personal life. These are all things I want you to keep thinking about when you're looking in your job search. Culture, as I said, you can have someone who, John is over here, he's dreading going into work every day. He's micromanaged by his manager. There's no teamwork. His colleagues don't help him out. That's all culture. That's all. And then you have, Adam over here, and he's thriving. His manager is very supportive of him. He's been allowed to develop, even though he's very good in his role. His manager is supporting him moving on in the company. That's a culture of growth. That's the type of companies you want to be working in. Then the size, as I mentioned, the industry. What industry do you want to go in? I have a brief story a little bit later. Think about, just because you're in a particular industry at the moment doesn't mean that you can't move on to a different industry. There's a huge piece here that I talk about, transferable skills. You could have very good transferable skills you can bring to another company. And I'll go through a little bit about that in a second. And then job opportunities. So this is just one of the examples of a client of mine that I had previously. He was a fisherman, and he came to me and he said, look, Geraldine, I used to really enjoy fishing. I used to, back in the early days, I got a buzz out of it. I was out at sea. It was very, there was lots happening. But he had recently got married. He had a young family, and I guess his values had changed, and he needed to find a job that was more secure. So he couldn't be going away anymore, spending 7-9 nights, 10 nights away from his family. He had to, I suppose, look at, you could be out at sea for a long time. Sometimes you might, the sea conditions could be really bad, and he mightn't be able to bring that catch in that would be, income for his family. So he came to me and he said, look, I know that there's a pharmaceutical company nearby, there's operator positions there, but he didn't really know how he could get into that particular role or how he would qualify for it. So we had a really really deep dive conversation with him, and it turns out there were so many transferable skills that he had that he could bring to manufacturing pharma role. So he said, he worked a lot with equipment. There's a lot around regulation. There's a lot around I suppose making sure that the quality when the catch comes in, that they're looking in those nets, making sure that the fish are going to his particular quality. And then so what we did was we designed his CV then in a way that it wasn't all about him really being a fisherman. It was about him working in a regulated environment, and one where he could then transfer to another regulated environment. So as we looked at his CV and we built the transferable skills, and the first part of the CV is all about the profile section. It's like your sales pitch, and it's really important that you put on what what you're doing at the moment. And even though you want to go somewhere new and different, there's no harm in spelling that out and spelling out what your transferable skills are in there. So just a little brief paragraph, 4 or 5 lines at the beginning of your CV is really important that you do that. Then when we go to CV layout, I know there's CVs, the only purpose of a CV really is to get you the interview. So just remember that it's a selling tool, and you just need to make sure that you have the keywords in there that are going to get your CV. I'm sure you've heard some of the other speakers as well, a lot around CV. So these would be, if I was to recommend the CV layout, I would say to you 2 pages is ideal really for a CV, and structure it in regards to have that profile section at the beginning, and just make sure that you have your summary piece there. Core competencies or your core skills. So just have 6 or 8 bullet points of what those skills are. And also look at the advert of the job that you're going for and see what are the skills that they're looking for in that particular role, and just make sure that they're on your CV. Then what I do is detail each employment. So what was the role that you were in? What was the company you worked for, and what were the dates that you were in it for? And then have 6 or 8 bullet points under that in regards to your experience. If you're newly graduated out of college, what I would say to you is put the education before your experience, because your education might be more related to what you're going for. And then technical skills. So any software you've used before, any particular, I suppose, computer skills or things like that you have that make you stand out from the crowd, and also that you can, I suppose, relate to the job advert and make sure that they're on there. And then if, again, you want your CV to stand out from the crowd, so any awards you've had, any volunteering you've had that relate to the particular role that you're going for. Okay, so putting purpose in your CV. As I said, the keywords are really important. So looking at that job advert, the job you're going for, making sure those keywords are in your CV, because there's a lot of applicant tracking systems that are used by companies. And what they're doing is they're just making sure that they're screening hundreds of CVs. So what they want to do is they want to make sure that the right CVs are going into the yes pile, and the way you get into that is through keywords, and also making it stand out to, if you're like a recruiter is reading the CV as well. You're singing, like it's basically hopping off the page, oh yeah, this person matches the role. Tailor your CV for each role. when I say, some people will look at me and go, I can't do that, I'm applying for 100 jobs. I would say to you is, if you apply for half the amount of jobs, and if you tailor the CV, I would recommend that you would have far more success than if you send off blanket CV, the same one to 100 jobs. Okay, it could be lucky, and you could, hit lucky with 1 or 2, but if you want to put purpose into your job search, I would recommend tailoring your CV. And then achievement. So rather than listing, on a job description, it kind of lists out the roles and responsibilities that you need to do. Try and make your CV more about the achievements that you've had in your role, because everybody can list the job description. That's very easy to do. But if you list off the achievements that are tangible, that's far more appealing to a recruiter. And then transferable skills, as I said, every one of you, you're the sum of all your experiences. So even if you've come from a different country, if you have come from a different industry, you need to sit down and do like an audit of what you have done and what your skill set is, and then make sure that you bring that into your new application. And the interview, oh my goodness. So how many people here get nervous for interviews? I think everybody gets nervous for interviews. It's natural and it's good, because sometimes you need that adrenaline running through your body because it helps your performance. And as I said earlier, don't underestimate the person at the other side of the table. They want to give you the job. They're willing you to be qualified. They don't want to sit through multiple rounds of interviews. So they just think of it that way. Your chance as well to find out about the company. You can read between the lines in interviews as regards, like I spoke about earlier, the development opportunities and different things like that. Also, I think nowadays there's still a blend of online and in-person interviews. Just make sure that you clarify with the recruiter what type of interview it is. So the first step in the interview process is, normally you'll have someone from HR call you, and sometimes people go to me, oh yeah, that doesn't really matter, that call, I'll get through that screening call, it's grand, it's fine. But I'm like, did you find out about, did you talk about salary? Did you talk about whether it's on site? Did you talk about whether it's, can you work from home? Oh no, I was going to wait until I got to the end of all the interviews, and then I was going to ask if I could work 2 days from home. I'm like, no, you can't do that. You have to do that early on in the time. So I would say to you, that call you get when you've submitted your CV and they ring you and they just want, I just want to find out about your experience, and you think, oh, they're just finding out about my, whether I can do the job and I am who I say I am. Take that time to find out the information. Find out, if you want to raise the question about salary or things like that, that you do so at that point. Who are the interviewers? This is really important. There is nothing wrong with looking up who your interviewers are. I had a client last week, and they were going for a particular role, and I said, well, who are you meeting? And they said, oh yeah, I'm meeting the finance manager. So his role was, say, sales. And I said, can you make sure when you're in that interview that you're talking figures? You're talking to what that person wants to hear, because they are going to relate more to you if you're hitting on those particular items. Your network is hugely important. So if you're applying to a particular role, or you've got the interview for a particular role, if you know someone in the company, it's no harm to give them a call and just see, find out a little bit maybe about the people who are recruiting you, about the company. Do your research about the company as well is really important. And then prepare examples. So I would say it's really important to have like a little bucket of experience that you have and different examples of times in the past where you can demonstrate that you, say, were very good at teamwork. So if you're answering a question on teamwork, saying, yes, I like to work as a team and I get on with everybody and everything goes really well, and we're all very happy together, it's a very generic type answer. Whereas what you want to do is you want to give a concrete example in the past where you were working as a team, working to a deadline, how you came together, and then what was your role in that particular instance? What did you deliver on? So I would say that's really important. And then just, I suppose, finally, like I spoke about at the start, is the amount of years that we are working in our working lives. The Japanese saying, there's a model here, an Ikigai model, and what they are saying is that if you can find what you're good at, what you love, what you can be paid for, and then what the world needs, that you would have really good purpose in your life. So it's a really valuable, I think it's a really valuable guide for you if you can even take this model away for today and just do an analysis of what are you good at, what would you like to do. I think aim for what you want at the start. Some people try and undersell themselves at the beginning. Just aim for the top first, and you can always be recalibrating then as you go, depending on what you're coming across. So my final tips and takeaways are really audit your current role. I would encourage you to look at, what parts of your job, either now or in the past, that you most enjoyed, and what transferable skills have you, because if you work in a regulated industry in one area, you can move to another area. There's lots of different transferable skills you can bring with you. Networking, I can't emphasize enough. Try and get out there, try and meet people, try and, if you've had worked with someone previously, there's no harm in reaching out to them again. Remember your non-negotiables. So at the beginning, we spoke around what's most important to people in work. I want you, if there's one thing I would say to you to take away from today is, what are your top three non-negotiables that you're going to, when you look for a job tomorrow, Monday morning, you might start again. You might say, right, this is the location I want, this is the companies I want. And then finally, keywords, tailor each application. Just make sure that you spend an extra little bit of time. It's not going to, massively make a massive difference, but I would say it's really important. So I think that's it. Thank you. I'm Geraldine from Steer Coaching, and that's my link on LinkedIn if anyone wants to connect. I'm also in the clinic over just down there. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Geraldine McCarthy, everyone from Steer Coaching. We have time for